Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Fostering Cooperation Among Black Food Co-ops. We're stronger together, okay? Together in the house. I got Amaha with Gem City Market and Erin with Fertile Ground Food Co-op. So excited to be here. Dr. Jazz with the National Black Food and Justice Alliance. And our goal of the session today is to talk about how do we build this Black cooperative movement using our collective power. So I'm gonna let Amaha introduce himself, please.
Sure. Greetings, Amaha Selassie, co-founder and board press for the Gem City Markets. By the time you see this, we have probably opened or will have just opened that same day. So we're excited to learn and to share and to just be a part of this amazing movement that is generating across the country.
Erin.
I'm Erin Dale. I live in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I am the current president of Fertile Ground Food Cooperative. And we're excited to watch Gem City's progress and want to just let them know how they're inspiring folks across the country. Build and leading as we build this movement. So thank you.
And excited to be working together. So I would love to open it up. Amaha, if you can go ahead and just frame the moment that we're in and maybe give some context about how we can situate ourselves in this moment.
Yeah, sure. You know, like when we look at everything that's happening, I think on a national level, to me, like I feel like we're in this moment of a Black renaissance, right? Of people, the Black community reimagining for ourselves, right? Like the multitude of meanings of Blackness, right? But they're all meanings generated from us and not from like the white imagination imposed upon us. And looking at like health and healing and realizing our potential and working together. And I think at this moment, it's like really taking the lead in our communities and self-determination. And all these things to me line up for why Black co-ops are so important in this hour, because we, most of our areas are areas that have been underdeveloped. And so how do we move and walk with communities that have lived within underdevelopment and, build power together towards that self-determination and determine what is that community we want to work, live, and play in, and how we leverage our resources to making it happen. So to me, it's like, now's our moment, right? To really strike and to come together and to really build solidarity across differences amongst us, and really this building up the Black community.
So important, just the solidarity. And you said Black Renaissance. I'm feeling it. The time is so now. When I think of Renaissance, I think of a movement. I think of what has happened in the past and the arts and the culture of the Black Renaissance. So Erin, can you speak about some key principles and like what necessarily like negates it being a movement?
I think that when I think about movement, I think about multiple organizations working together across differences. I also think about multiple functions of movement. So as an example, you have some organizations that help organize people, some organize resources, some organize legal support, some organize coaching and development support, etc. And when you're able to see those organizations working together across their differences, I feel like that's when you begin to see movement form. But essentially, as it relates to Black grocery store cooperatives in the US, I see us as a movement that is coming into a real powerful political formation, I guess I want to say. So I find that to be inspiring. If you would imagine, so Gem City, how many members you have of Amaha now?
A little bit over 4,000.
Okay, so you want to imagine the 20 to 30 Black cooperatives that are organizing now across the country with 4,000 strong members, deeply consciously aware members, so they understand the conditions that are going on, and to then see that kind of replicate across the country for fertile ground, there's a Winston-Salem co-op right here in North Carolina, for instance, that we need to start building like real deep relationship with, etc. And when we get multiple of our groups up to where we have the type of scale, then we can press for the kind of political change and policy changes that we want, and financial changes that we want, and economic changes. One of my allies told me they saw the Black cooperative movement as the voice of the economic justice movement in the future, like one of these core grounded membership voices naming what the new economy should look like. And so I see the potential of our movement. And I also see that there are gaps, but not gaps that we can't fill, just gaps that we haven't had the time or the resources to spend in closing as a movement too. And that's what's really exciting to me about this moment, because we're spending more time talking about what it looks like to build all of our cooperatives collectively together, which is different than trying to open your own co-op in your own community because of racialized capitalism and the press of white supremacy and colonized practices. All those things pressing down on the individual co-op is just a lot, versus those things pressing down on us as infrastructure. It gives us more space to combat it together, and then to build the systems that we need internally to support each other. And that's kind of inside of movement. They don't just kind of magically arrive, they are actually built. I think that that's another important thing to just name. The civil rights movement was built, and these other movements across the country, people build these movements. They don't, while conditions might tip something that happens in that moment, there's been capacity built before for things to kind of take off, And so we're at that building of capacity for this moment that is coming, that I think we're all kind of getting ready for, where things are going to really shift, and we're going to be in place to build some safety and security for our people. And I think that's what we want in our movement.
Yeah, I think that's a excellent point, right? Because part of that building, I think, is the relationships that are being built amongst us. And we're building deep. We're not building transactional. What I mean? We're sharing resources. We're sharing best practices. We're sharing, you know what? Like I had this problem. Let's talk about it, or whatever. You know what I mean? So we're learning from each other. And like right now, we're not only harvesting, the knowledge of our elders and the sacrifice of our elders, but we like harvesting a harvest right now, and it's like how to really bring these gifts to the center, and how we're building power, what I mean, collectively. And the whole notion of movement ecology that you mentioned earlier, like what are the different facets of movement, and like what all do we need, and how do they work together, right? Like, if structures work together to solidify, whiteness and oppression, then, we can build structures that solidify humanity and dignity and a way for us to be able to move forward. And so I'm just real excited in this hour to see the reimagining, that's taking place in our communities, because we really are the ones we've been waiting for. And we got to know that, what I mean? Like that can't be something that, it sounds cool, what I mean? But we got to know that we have the gifts and talents in our community right now, right? Like all we got to do is bring it out, what I mean? How do we leverage these things? And it comes by that deeper relationship. And to me, that's where the co-ops come in, right? Because the co-op is like we see Gem City Market as being like the watering hole / beehive. So we have a teaching kitchen, a health clinic, and a community room all inside of it. And we have over 90 partnerships with outside organizations, right? And so the whole thing is like how we create this thing where we're leveraging the gifts and talents of the community. How are we being the catalyst, right? So like we say that it's more than a market, but a movement. Right. So like how does the market serve the function of bringing more hope into the community? That we did this together. Like that's something that nobody will ever take from me. And like I've witnessed it. I've witnessed a community realizing its power, right? That's stepping into its place of self-determination, plotting the direction of what we want to do, what we want to see as a community. And that's what leverages the gifts. As more and more people have hope that change is possible, another world is possible, then I freely give my gifts to the center, right? And that's what we need to do if we're going to truly build the capacity that you're talking about. Because we already have the gifts and talents right now. I'm just convinced that we have the gifts and talents, you know what I mean, within our networks, within our ecosystems, and definitely within our communities. Right. And so, like, how do we leverage that out? How do we build that? You know what I mean? And so Erin, our fearless leader when it comes to the Collective Courage Fund and this, that, and the other, right? She's been providing some of these mechanisms, man, to really bring us together in a whole new way. I mean, like her thinking is so like out the box, man, that it's like, wow, you know, so I'm just thankful, you know what I mean? And excited. And I think we're all being, you know, emboldened, you know what I mean, in this hour to really, you know, stand up and be who we are unapologetically, you know, knowing Ubuntu. Because to me, I think all this is going to boil down to this notion of independence versus interdependence, right? And interdependence isn't something that sounds cool. It is the literal structure mechanism of all things. Right. And so the more we tap into what is, the more we flow with what all is. And that's where the power is at. You know what I mean? The power is in expanding our we, knowing we have a shared future. Right. So to me, the co-ops, especially the food co-ops, are the vehicle to how we bring people together. We're working on our health, but we're also building deeper relationships as a community, building our social capital, right? Healing some of these wounds across differences in our local communities that we can truly then plot and say like what is that future that we're trying to determine, and then as our base builds, we can use that to then determine policy and to, you know, run candidates or whatever, you know what I mean, like how we really seize the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you, man, the spirit that you have of belonging and the deep we, and how you always bring that forward. I want to raise and appreciate that, because I feel like that's also what we, Baba Malik had put something on Facebook a few weeks ago, and he was like, being a cooperator is a way of being. It's not like a task.
I say.
And so I am a cooperator and identify as one because I believe in the we over the I.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like as we are able to name why we do this work from that place, we are able, because one of the things that the Black cooperative movement is up against, but everybody is up against, is this deep individualism, this deep checkout on the role of government, and apathy about government and distrust of it, which is all real. How, you know, and also has implications when we release the role of government, somebody else grabs it. Mm-hmm. And so political, whether you're political or not, politics happens to you whether you happen to politics. If you don't engage in politics, trust it's engaging you. You just ain't really paying attention. So, or know the impact directly. And so as we move to the we govern from the we offer an alternative governing system, because the US governance system is based on the I. Everything in this country is sort of in the structures and systems based on the I. And people are like, well, Erin, it's a representative democracy. But if I could spend more time with you, I could break that down, you know, about money in politics, United Citizens, all these other factors that make it more difficult for the democratic system itself to operate in its fullness. It has been bought off and usurped in many fronts. And so then what you're left is these larger political systems practicing governing from individualism, and we in our communities not having access to governing or even the practice governance in mass like we need to. That's the other thing that the cooperative does. It has Black people practicing democratic governance on a regular basis as a way of being, and then building organization rooted in that, and growing people and inviting people to own and build together and to steward economic entities together. And that is a direct assault against what is typically known as business in the US, which is one person accumulating and acquiring a business and then grabbing the labor of everybody else as they profit. And so when we think about what we're doing in the Black cooperative movement, is we're building a whole new ecosystem whereby the work is based off of sharing in the labor of the work and the resources of the work and the benefit of the work, but in the vision of the work and the governing of the work. And I believe as people are able to be in places where they have that level of leadership and self-determination and organization, that then it changes how they see their relationship with the other systems in their lives as a model. And then you're practicing leadership, you're practicing sharing, you're practicing principled struggle, and that those give people the ability to govern and then build a society that's going to be different than the one we're currently in, because people actually have the practice of a different way of being together. And that's part of what this movement means to me too. And that we are leading in it is that we understand that we're actually leading in the building of the new way, the other way that we've been talking about. Like, we are actually the builders of the new way. This is what we are doing. And so that can't be done by one co-op. You know, it can't even really be done by only 25 co-ops on their own. We must then have the intermediaries, the support of the funders, the support of people that have resources that we don't have, the support of people who are looking at how to redefine risk and capital. Like, we need to support all these people to work with us. And as we build our ability to work together, we build our capacity to hold other kinds of alliances and movement and so on and so forth. And I envision, you know, us having the type of infrastructure where we have multiple staff helping Black cooperatives across the country. We have people out there raising millions of dollars for us, where we have somebody who is tasked with building our market study process and charging other people to use it and making money for our movement, where we have, you know, our own database system that we tried and tested, and it works amazingly for us, and it gives us all this joy, and we charge other people to use it, we make money for our movement. And whereas we're raising resources, those resources are going in the hands of owners that are collectively governing organization together and determining what to do with those resources and practicing that together. And to me, that's how we actually operationalize building this new world. We have to practice doing it and build the systems and structures that allow that practice.
That is so real. Like the thing that I'm on right now more than anything is this notion of praxis, right? So you have, you know, idea, action, reflection. But I think it's all about that right now, because, you know, like Bell Hooks, she said, no, but verify and praxis. You know what I mean? We got to get out of our heads and into like how we're manifesting these things, and we're trying it out. You know what I mean? Like it's play. You know what I mean? Oh, this didn't work. Let me learn, adjust, and keep going. You know what I mean? But we keep our eye on the prize, right? You know, we got our North Star, you know, and we keep building, right? Like you mentioned alternative, you know, alternative structures and alternative space, you know, and I think that's it, because, you know, the co-ops were learning how to really practice participant democracy, you know, like at its core, you know, because so for the Gem City market, from the name of the market to our mission statement to our architectural design, the community has been throughout, right? Like we were highly participatory, you know, and, you know, it took a little longer and it gets a little stressful at times, right? But it's more authentic. And now at the tail end of it, you know, we're at the beginning of a new phase, right? Because one thing to build it, next thing to occupy it, right? But you can see that their fingerprint is there. You know what I mean? I can look, oh, I know who made that decision, right? like that's why, like, when people come up to me now and they're like, oh, great job. But no, we did this together. And the amazing thing happened to me like 2 weeks ago. I was being interviewed on something, and the interviewer got so excited, and she said, yeah, and we gonna do this. And then she said, no, I mean you. And I was like, no, you said it correct. It's we, right? Because that's just the whole thing, man. Like as our community, we're not used to that sharing power structures, right? And this notion of like doing this thing creative, co-creating, you know what I mean? So now when people come up to me and they say, are you gonna do this? I said, I know, are we gonna do it? You know what I mean? Are you gonna bring your gifts to the talent, to the circle to make this thing happen? You know what I mean? It's like, you know, it's gonna be what we create it to be. You know what I mean? We can't blame nobody else. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, yo, if we don't show up, then we don't show up. You know what I mean? And so it's like how we leverage our gifts and talents. You know what I mean? Like how do we acknowledge everybody's dignity? How we try to not outshine people, but like, yo, you got some amazing gifts, man. Like you know, creating space. You know what I mean? For people to be and to share their gifts and talents, man. Because so many of us are looking for something different. Right. And we're looking for a greater way, but we get caught up, man. And it's like how do we build those deeper relationships, you know what I mean? And acknowledge each other, that we can leverage our full capacity. And that's what, you know, Erin, you mentioned earlier, something about, you know, building solidarity economies, you know, like to me, like the key is the asset-based community development. So like as the market, as part of that pillar, right? So what do our supply chains look like, right? You know, about like how are we developing local businesses? How are we developing local farmers and all of these things and keeping it in-house? Like Marcus Garvey, you know, Marcus Garvey wanted the seed to the land, to the whole means of production. You know what I mean? So how we keep that and we're flipping it amongst ourselves, right? That we're generating that economy. You know what I mean? And so it's like how are we supporting ourselves, creating for ourselves, reimagining for ourselves, right? And that's why I think the co-op is a catalyst for it, because like you mentioned Baba Malik, you know, like this whole notion of it being a culture, it being a praxis, right? It being something that we gotta learn, you know what I mean, and practice day and night. You know what I mean? Like I'm thinking of Jamila. I remember something that she told me years ago that just really stuck with me, right? This notion of like building cooperation in our communities. You know what I mean? Because like we're modeling something different. You know what I mean? Like it's not about picking people apart and getting on Instagram and Facebook and try to annihilate each other. You know what I mean? Like, no, like how can I lift you up? You know what I mean? Like, how can I say, oh, you shining right now, man? Like do your thing, you know, like how can we work together? How can we collaborate? You know what I mean? And we joke at the market that like, that's our superpower at Gem City Market, is that we are good for building collaboration. You know, it's like, even with Erin over Fertile Ground, you know what I mean? Like, you know, we've been building capacity together, you know? So yeah.
Yeah. Can you talk more about that? I feel like that's a perfect segue. Y'all see each other sharing gifts, like how in practice, in real life, are y'all building those networks, you know, and shifting this power and making it collectively?
Yeah, so I can offer this story. So we at Fertile Ground have been organizing since we incorporated in 2013. So we're now at 2021. So we're nearing like 9 years of like direct organizing. And we really care about, we really are working now on building our volunteer capacity. We want it, because what we've had in the past is people will come and want to offer ideas, but they weren't like, this thing that Amaha said, can you come bring your resource to help, you know? So that was a struggle for us for a while. And then what we wanted to do is build our volunteer machinery up so that we could build these systems and people can come and volunteer with us and we can build our work out that way. So one of the things that we have done is started to sit in phone bank for Gem City. Mm-hmm. So several of our project leaders there's about 3 of them at this point now that have joined the Gem City calls, have talked to them about Airtable, have like gotten the scripts and stuff. And what is important in that for me is that Erin has been phone bank for the better part of her life. I know how to pull a phone bank together, and I could have done that, but that wasn't gonna help if people hadn't seen a system. You know what I mean? If they hadn't seen multiple people, like to get on those Gem City things now, they are seeing the volunteer leadership, the training, somebody followed up with them. And it's like teaching people not only the direct capacities, but the systems that we need to maintain the capacity. And because Gem City's already done it, already practiced it, they done worked out their kinks. So now Fertile Ground don't have to like figure all of those things out, because we're getting from them the very best that they have already like worked through, right?
Yeah.
And it's inspired folks. And it's important for us now because we are moving into a market study that's going to require us to survey folks directly and have deep conversations. So we need to do like one-on-one deep conversations with folks around the market study. We have a farmers market that's every month. We want volunteers to come to the farmers market and help us to volunteer there. And we also are wanting to launch a capital campaign by the fall so that we could raise the money, because we're hoping to name our site very soon. And so as we're moving along in this process, we have to think about how to build the systems we need for later too. And now we can go and ask Gem City questions because they're a co-op and they've done this. And they know what it means to do it as a co-op, which is different than doing it, say, as a group getting somebody out to vote or some other kind of organization. And so that sharing has been helpful. They've shared with us their agreements, their legal agreements between their C3 and their co-op. So they've had a C3 incubator that has supported their work for many years. And Amaha can say more about that. They've shared those legal agreements. They shared their information on the market study processes that they've had before. They have shared the information on their database systems. They're generally available to answer all kinds of questions. And I want to name that they do that. Like Fertile Ground, we do it too. But there also isn't anybody to answer all those questions. People are asking us questions night and day about the work that we're doing right now. And I'm sure Amaha could speak to the number of times you get asked to speak to people about what you're doing that are trying to do this work as well. And so even having a slate of like people that we could say, oh, this is the best coach ever. Go to these 4 people, they are compensated to help startups answer all the questions that me and Amaha and many of us people are doing, and probably, or you're going to start doing too, Jazz, you know, because folks are hungry for the way, and we have not been investing in this so that we can respond to this need in the way that I would like to. So we're getting there though. And I think that's part of the collective courage work that is, and I'll just name for people, Collective Courage is a pooled fund that we've been building together to support Black cooperatives get general operating support for their membership and organizing work. This is not capital money. This is not like a strategy to gain capital money directly, like from a loan like that. This is money to help them with organizing, base building, leadership development, which is ultimately the most important aspect of the project that maintains it. It rides or dies on that, you know.
Right.
And so we want to spend the next, and we've had Renaissance Cooperative, which was in North Carolina. It's important to name, like, they did all of this work for the better part of they worked for years, and they were open their store, and then they have closed their store since then. And they have shared all the lessons about that. But I promise you, if we had had the infrastructure that we needed for all cooperatives, I don't think that would have happened for Renaissance or anybody else that followed, right? Because you're out here trying to do everything all on your own. And it's very hard when there isn't organizations that are like you doing the work with you.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, right? That like, I look at us as like direct beneficiaries of Renaissance, you know, like the main thing we learned is that organize, right? Like don't stop organizing, right? And so we've emphasized that, especially on a 501c3 arm, like we're just ramping up. You know what I mean? And that was direct lessons, you know. And I think even the, you know, the Collective Courage Fund and the way that we were able to use that to help do organizing work and base building work in the fall last year, it really helped us a lot. You know what I mean? Like we even, you know, developed leaders inside the communities. You know what I mean? Like we're calling them block captains, you know, so that we can go deeper into communities and organize. But really, I think it's what, to me, like I think cooperation as the culture and the way that we share resources is a way that we build. Instead of everybody having to learn for themselves and try to figure this thing out, you know what I mean? Like this way's being paved, and you know, there's you know, Fannie Lou Hamer and multiple people that came before us, right? And we're learning and we're building and we're adapting and we're sharing bananas, we're dropping breadcrumbs, you know what I mean? We're you know, I've never met anybody that I couldn't call up and be like, yo, man, like this was going on, like, can I get your advice? Or, you know, be like, have you ever seen this before? Or you know, and the way National Black Food Justice Alliance, the way that, you know, pulling everybody together, that we're having meetings, we're having ways to talk, you know what I mean? It's like, it's so important that we really know each other, you know, and to build that shared identity. You know what I mean? That like we in this together, we learning, we're on the cutting edge, right? Like, cause like this is where co-ops is heading. You know what I mean? Like the most growth in co-op is happening in underdeveloped communities, right? So what are the commonalities in that, right? Like to me, redlining is the key, right? Because redlining and the lack of opportunity, the health effects, right? Like these are all the things that, like, you know, it shows up differently in different places, but these are some of the underlying factors that we can build off of, right? When we're building our co-ops and our communities, right? And to me, like the biggest thing about Black co-ops in general is that, like, yo, we're about survival. Like we're not doing this thing because it's cool and we want to have little organic food here and there. You know what I mean? It's like yo, this is about making sure that kids eat. You know what I mean? Like this is making sure that we have access to fresh fruits and vegetables and not driving, taking 2 and 3 buses and spending 3 hours to get groceries. So we deserve it, man. And sometimes we get so stuck, like we have 40,000 residents in West Dayton and no full service grocery store. And like some of us just accepted that as being okay. Other parts of the community got 2 and 3 grocery stores within a mile radius. You know what I mean? Like why not us? You know what I mean? And so it's like reimagining what's possible, reimagine what we deserve, and not waiting for Superman, right? But building it ourselves. You know what I mean? So to me, that's all the catalyst and the power that Black co-ops and food co-ops in particular have, right? As we're developing this renaissance in our communities.
Right. I think it's so crazy. When I think about the Black co-op movement, and my introduction to it was at an urban co-op gathering. My introduction to it in the modern era, what I mean is I'd read about it. I had been to the Federation of Southern Cooperatives in Epps, Alabama. So I'd been to up and coming these multiracial gatherings. And then we had the urban co-op gathering and met some, and they called it urban co-op because it was multiracial in these Black and brown communities. But when we got to the meeting, it was a lot of Black people. And that was, I want to say 3 or 4 years ago, maybe now.
Yeah, that's where we met.
That's where we met. See, so then we want to say thank you to FCI for the urban space because they introduced us to each other. Yes. Then it also called for this question of self-determination and autonomy, and we need to organize ourselves. Now you need to really think about what infrastructure existed to bring us together across the country prior to that. And I just wasn't aware of it, right? And so now we have up and coming having there's Black Co-op Day in the middle of the week. The National Black Food Injustice Alliance has graciously, because they offered their staff for free, quite frankly, for a long time before raising any resources to pay people to help us. And so that holding space by them as a offering to movement should be acknowledged and remembered. I won't forget it, And now we have Dr. Jab.
Hey.
One of the lead organizers, exactly, and the self-determining food economies, who's actually able to lend her support to our work and so it's not even like just having a human being to help us, but having somebody who is rooted, smart, strategic, has relationships, understands what we're trying to do, has interviewed all these Black farmers. I mean, like, come on, man. So I feel our movement, we're on the path to drawing more visibility to our work. And as we come together in spaces, we build, I always think about it as building the channels for movement too. So if we want something to happen in the future, how are we building the path to that thing?
Yeah.
Where is it going to land? Who is going to hold it? Who is going to coordinate it? Who's going to be doing the follow-up? Who's going to make sure that our goals are clear, that we meet our metrics, that we meet all the goals that we set for ourselves? Even as movement, you set goals, or you set an aspirational vision that has benchmarks, I guess, to help you move along the way, to check to see your progress. And so I think today I'm experiencing a great bit of gratitude about how far we've come from that very first conversation, right? So I do want to take a moment and just kind of sit in that and say thank you for that. We do have a long way to go. And I'm grateful that we're starting to get the visibility for our work as a movement, and that we're starting to see ourselves as one, because that's where, like you said, the resources and the power and the support and the growth of our work is going to happen for sure, and making it easy for people coming behind us.
I say, yeah. Something you making me think about is the counter narrative, right? And like, how are we defining things for ourselves, right? And how are we centering inside of the lived experience of the Black community? Because it's like, when we change our narrative, we change how we see each other, we change how we interact. Like all of these things come from challenging the dominant narrative, right? And so to me, that's what this whole renaissance is about. It's how are we changing how we see each other and relate to each other, that then in turn impacts how we work together, what we're building, and this, that, and the other, and there's so much power inside of that in this hour. And it leads me to like, so I'm a community-based researcher, participatory researcher. And so like how you go out into the community and not only just capture the stories and the voice from the community, but how do you teach the community how to capture its own story and then bring it back to the community so that we can then collectively, oh, we're all experiencing the same thing, right? And how our experience is then connected to policy and structure and all of these things, right? Because understanding like what we experience is not natural, which is why I don't like to use food desert versus food apartheid, right? Is that like the more we understand that it's not natural, that it's based upon imagination, right, our lived experience, right, then we can reimagine it, right? Like we know we have agency and power to change it, you know, and that's what I feel we're all coming together, you know, like even people beyond the food co-op movement, like just in general, we're realizing that, you know, it's a shift that's happening. You know what I mean? Like you can only keep people pressed for so long, you know what I mean? And so like right now, you know, we're bubbling up, you know what I mean? And we're building solidarity across differences, even beyond racial lines. For real. We're fighting for the common humanity, right? We're acknowledging the dignity and worth of every human being. You know what I mean? And so like we don't have this thing with hierarchy based upon skin color, right? So it's not our disease, you know? So it's like how do we truly build the world that acknowledges dignity for all, right? And the lived practice of it, you know? And so that's why I feel we're at the cusp at, you know, on some levels. And trailblazing way by being the invitation, we gotta be the thermostat and not the thermometer. You know what I mean? We gotta dictate the temperature in the room, dictate the temperature in our communities, you know, and, you know, building trust, you know, can move at the speed of trust, you know what I mean? And so being relational and not transactional, you know, and taking the time to build the deep roots, like, you know, like Adrian always talks about the, you know, the strength of the connections, right? And so like how we're truly shifting the narrative to then shift the way we connect. And then that connect allows us to build an alternative ecosystem, you know what I mean? That, you know, anti-racist or however you want to call it, you know what I mean? But like building these spaces, right? We're truly emerging and exploring and co-creating something new.
I'm going to sit on that. This Black Renaissance, reimagining with a Black lens and building our collective power. I really want to just go back to that hope that you mentioned earlier, Amaha. That was so important about how we have this collective vision to know what we can have and what we rightfully deserve as Black people in our community. I
mean, I so appreciate because when you said, I was thinking in my mind, like, we deserve these things. We deserve them. Hear my voice. We deserve them. You know, just even walking down the street and not having fear that the police will kill us, we deserve it. Sure. It is ours and we deserve it. Sure. We have already earned it like 17 times over. And and so I feel that's how I think I feel some righteousness in the fight that we're waging as well, because our people deserve better than this shit that it's just complete. It's so beyond unacceptable, but there really aren't words for it. And as a matter of fact, I think that's another reason that I'm a cooperator, and I appreciate that Black cooperative Renaissance movement. Can you imagine? I so appreciate that so much. I'm about to sit on that. We deserve so much better than this, and living in it without fighting against it is intolerable to me as a human being. And then fighting against it and always in that resistance mode because of the continuous assaults, trauma, abuse, violence, and undignified action and savagery that is continually committed upon Black people in this US of A. And I like to say the entire sentence because it is true. We deserve a lot. Our what we have earned is well beyond this. And so then it makes me want to fight harder for all the things that folks are saying that they think are difficult for us to have. So as it relates to the market study infrastructure, you know, I'm not accepting these market studies. Like, people deserve this racist accepting this. Or, you know, no general managers. I'm not accepting this. I'm like, I'm not accepting any of these things any longer. And I know that when I am working with you all as the cooperators, that you all agree and we don't have to accept. And that's where we begin, instead of even ending like way back here way past negotiation, where many others are starting for our people. They're starting well past anywhere where I'd even consider negotiating. And that's where they begin. So I want to begin 10, 15 years ahead. You know what I'm saying? And so I feel like our movement offers that leadership, offers the infrastructure, offers the care and the independence. And because it is a strategy where you're building an enterprise so that you can create freedom into perpetuity, it keeps us independent and free. And so it is the infrastructure that I'm most like committed to building for all of those reasons, and knowing that I'll be held accountable in the infrastructure because people vote for their leadership, and we all will be, you know? And that to me also feels just right, instead of the nonprofit building that I've done in the past. So I find this as a way to make amends on the other work that I have done too.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think your work at the Partnership Fund and the way that you're reimagining that, I think is a huge part towards this, our fearless leader. So yeah, you know, something that you said that is like my growth edge learning curve is, you know, I'm a sociologist, so like for years I've been dedicated toward dismantling, you know, systems of oppression, like the root assumptions and everything, because structure is ideology plus resources, right? Like how they make the idea real, even if it's not real, right? But now I'm more convinced than ever that it's just building the alternative. It's like, you know, I don't gotta like tear down nothing, man. Like I'm just gonna build what I got. You know what I mean? And you know, if you got some hammer, you got some nails, we got some wood, some, you know what I mean? Like let's build. And that's the power I think the co-ops have, right? Is that like let's just build with what we got. You know what I mean? And grow up from there. Like, you know, in Ethiopia, we say kas bakas, slowly, the egg begins to walk, you know? And so it's like, yeah, like let's build what we're trying to build and then invite others into that space instead of like talking and waiting for other people to move and you know, begging and pleading. Nah, like I'm just going to just build, you know what I mean? Because even, you know, I used to do, you know, more, you know, movement work as far as, you know, protesting and this, that, and other. But the thing I realized, like, if you don't have a dance between something in the community, if you're just always out in the streets, but we don't have something in the community to funnel it to, then it dissipates. You know what I mean? But that dance is where, you know, you're moving back and forth. You know, you in the community when you need to. You in the streets when you need to be, but you also in the community the rest of the time, right? Building these deep relationships. You know, learning how to farm, whatever we need. You know, tutoring classes, et cetera, et cetera. So. Yeah, so you know, I'm thankful for this conversation that Dr. Jazz, you know, enabled us to get the spark of the catalyst of, you know, and yeah, I'm looking forward to part 2 in person when we can all just like put our collective intelligence together and share from our experiences and like what we need to do to continue to add some bricks and some more structure to the movement, you know. So yeah, I'm thankful for everybody's time.
Yeah, thank y'all.
Yeah, I'm just so grateful for both of you all. Thank you. And we have everything we need in our bones, as Mama Naya Watkins out of Durham, North Carolina would say.
This is perfect. Amaha, thank you so much. Erin, thank you so much. You mentioned somewhere to funnel that energy. If you want to join the National Black Food and Justice Alliance, feel free to hit me up. We do have working groups, as Erin mentioned, Baba Malik, Jamila, y'all all, Mark Winston Griffin, y'all have held it down in this space to lead Black-led co-ops to have a space to meet together more than once a year. So we meet every month. We just had a call about market studies, and we got more coming. Okay, so hit us up. I'm Jasmine at blackfoodjustice.org, but we have the supply chain working group. We got the co-op working group. And then of course, I'm leading the policy working group. So all of this is aligned. All of this synergy is needed. We got this Black Renaissance movement happening, and the time is now. So once again, thank y'all for your insight.
Thank you. And then Dr. Jazz, make sure you spell out your email address for people.
Yeah, it's Jasmine, JASMINE at blackfoodjustice.org. And I can be sure to send you the collective courage information. We do have a form where we're wanting to know each grocery co-op's need to reach full capacity. We want to know your gaps. We want to know your needs. We want to know how we can share resources. So please reach out, and we want to build together.
Yes.
All right, y'all. Peace, everybody.
So wonderful. I'm so excited.